This is the commercial world. My mission is simple: to help you achieve financial freedom through commercial property using calculated risk and practical education. My name is Basha Deswani and I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Gabriel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Just tell us a little bit about you and your business and how did you start it and your journey in the business?
Yeah. Where do you want me to start? Right at the start?
Right at the start.
Okay. I've been a lawyer for, was it 15, 16 years? Since 2010. So 16 years, 16 and a bit.
Yeah.
So I was admitted, I've been working for, I guess you call them boutique law firms since then.
Yeah.
So commercial boutique firms, which might help in a range of areas, but quite often that property side of things, structuring as well, etc. So working for boutique firms, and then for about 7 of those years, and then for about 8 years, probably working as a partner or owner in firms. So originally with a firm that no longer exists, moved over to another firm as a partner. A boutique firm that did commercial work, but also had some other areas of practice. So family, worked there for 5 years as a principal. And then I think they just became different businesses under the same brand. And we wanted to separate out, sort of move the commercial out from the family law side of things. So 3 and a bit years ago, set up Church and Partners with 4 other colleagues that were at the previous firm.
Yeah.
So we could focus on purely the commercial work that we do. And so, been working under the brand commercial Church and Partners, for the last 3 and a bit years, purely focused on commercial work.
Amazing. So you do commercial property and business?
Yes, commercial property business, sort of contracts, structuring, and then tax as well is the other area. So,
Awesome.
advising on tax issues and tax structuring.
Yeah, perfect. What is the best thing about commercial property that you like, and why do you sort of keep showing up to work? What is that one thing that sort of makes you show up to work every day?
Can I give you 2 things?
Yeah,
So
of
the one underlying thing is I just like seeing people build and create stuff. So which can be a lot of different ways, and that the business side is part of that. But from a property side, I think people that are willing to build or buy something and invest in it and create an asset out of that. Just I really enjoy seeing people do that.
Yeah.
That's how progress happens, I guess. So
Yeah.
being involved, if I'm not actually the one doing the investment, at least being there to help people. I get reward out of that, and I guess it's enjoyable actually being on the sideline, sort of getting a front row seat to see how people are doing that.
Yeah.
So that's probably the underlying motivation for it. And then, the investment side, I've just always had a fascination, I guess, with investment, how that works. So, working with people that are specifically doing it in property is interesting, I think.
And it's always like you would be meeting so many growth-minded people, seeing them from where they start and where they are.
Yep.
Like what are the things that you have learned in your business and have implemented it that you've learned from other people?
Yeah. Lots of things. I think particularly an understanding of risk and making judgments is a big thing. So, learning how people approach risk, what decision factors they might use around deciding on a risk and whether to invest, understanding, accepting risk, but also knowing what's the right sort of risk. Being in business, I think building anything is risky, so you can't avoid it, but you can also be stupid with your risk, I guess, and that can set you back a lot. So taking those learnings from people in how you approach it, and people will have their different ways that they want to approach risk or appetite for risk. So you've got to have your own side, but you can certainly learn a lot from other people and pick up maybe what they're comfortable with that you're not, or how they might approach different risks. So that's been big, because otherwise you're learning the hard way, which is taking the risk yourself, making the mistake, and
then
finding
learning
out
from it.
which you do have to do and is unavoidable to
Yeah.
an extent. But if you can learn from watching other people, that can save you a lot of time and heartache, maybe making the wrong investments or taking the wrong risks. Probably also taking a long time frame. So there's different types of investments and they can work out in different time frames, but probably the good operators that do it consistently just have a long-term view. And they're very focused on consistency, understanding what works for them and then doing that on repeat.
Yeah.
I think I actually remember a developer we worked for a number of years telling me it made all his money out of residential development,
Hmm.
and every now and then might invest in a startup or something and loses money, or not all of it, but
Right.
lose money on that, and
Yeah.
saying, and he says he'll end up doing it every now and then still, but always saying just sticking to his knitting. He made his money in
Hmm.
residential. He knows how to make that. He can
Yeah.
do it in his sleep. Every time he ventures out into something else, he would lose money.
Yeah.
So he just finding what you were good at and then sticking to it,
Yeah.
and doing that consistently is a much bigger benefit than trying to look for the newest maybe fad or something
Hmm.
that's higher return, but you're not really used to dealing with and getting out of
True.
your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
for
You don't
me,
know more about it.
sorry.
Like if you're trying to do something new that you don't know more about it and you're just wanting to see because it's a new cool thing to do,
Yep.
and then you might not be good at it or
Yeah.
yeah.
So for us, and focusing just on what what we're good at, and
Yeah.
making sure we really drill down on that rather than
Yeah.
trying to jump on a new opportunity that's not within our main focus area.
Yeah.
And that was part of the purpose of setting up church, was just to go, what are we really good at? And let's just do that and only that, and just keep doing it better than we did last week, better than we did the year before.
Hmm.
And if you do that consistently, so that's what I've seen from good operators that I'm learning, that just
Yeah.
keep doing the basics that you're really good at consistently.
Do they ever get digressed or diverted or want to do something now that I'm bored of, or I know how to do it and I've got the process and system? Now I want to try and do something different. And yes, you've said, like, as you've given us the example, it wasn't good at it or was just failing at it, then making a decision, coming back to residential, just doing what you know is best and doing that really, really well.
Mm,
But what if someone is a big dreamer, like I'm a big dreamer and I just want to do like different things? But for me, I think it's a good idea to just like hone on to or just be like sticking to my own lane and just keep on doing the thing that I really, really love, which is again commercial property, and just doing that right and
yep.
knowing more and learning more about it. But what if someone is a big dreamer and want to do something and add on to it, sort of it still will be a commercial property, but sort of becoming a developer in that and then doing more of that as well.
Yep.
So having your own stock and then having, like selling that. So you're not sort of chasing more of a stock
Mm.
is where I want to go into. Like what would you say no to that as in your experience?
No, I wouldn't say no to that.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess being consistent and sticking to what you're very good at shouldn't mean, or doesn't mean, say no to everything else all the time.
Yeah.
It's just trying to give it a lens to say, well, what is the right opportunity? Because
Mm.
the other side is you can end up chasing out something different every week and make no progress. I mean, it also depends on other things like timing. So, I mean, I'm still learning
Mm.
this stuff. I guess you always are. But
Yeah.
if you're younger, it's probably good to do a lot of different things. That's a way to learn a lot of skills, to find out what you want to do.
Yeah.
But over time, it gets hard to do a lot of different things very well.
Yeah.
So starting to narrow down on certain areas helps. I think if you are then going to change that or add to it, maybe things that are aligned with what you're doing. So certainly see people that do well with maybe a few different businesses or different opportunities coming up often have some connection to what they're already doing. That means it's not a complete
Mm.
180 or change
Yeah.
from what their skill set already is. It's quite complementary.
Yeah.
Often they
Aligned.
can feed into each other. So
Yeah.
you're almost doubling or tripling down on your time, where investing in one adds value to the other as well.
Yeah.
So, talking about doing your own property investment, that's something that could, because you're leveraging off skills and
Yeah.
opportunities that you might already be finding
Mm.
if you're out there helping people in the market.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one way you could do it that makes it a bit easier, and you're not spreading yourself too thin,
Yeah.
is where problems happen, or getting outside
True.
of your expertise too much.
Yeah. True. So it's still safe. And your advice is go for it.
Yes, definitely. You've got plenty of time to
Yeah.
make a few mistakes and fix it up along the
No, I
way.
don't want to make any mistakes.
You're going to make a few
Yeah, for
eventually,
sure.
so
By
it's
default, isn't it? Like you
unavoidable.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're going to learn from that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, in that way, having a go at things earlier gives you
Mm.
more time to fix those mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, like I said, I love seeing people try and build things. So I don't want
Yeah.
to dissuade you or anyone else from giving it a go.
Yeah.
It's just not going to the other extreme and switching ideas
Yeah.
every week and not actually following something through.
True, 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 true. In your career, like what have you seen is the most, what have you experienced as the most complex transaction, doing more DD on it, and then it took you a long time, but you still got to the end of it. Like give us an example of.
Yeah, so worked on some shopping center purchases
Mhm,
where there was extensive DD around a number of things, but say particularly the leases that were in place
mhm,
in the shopping centre. So acting for the buyer, wanting to make sure that all the leases were compliant.
yeah.
So both as simple as just having a lease in place that was
Mhm,
up to date and signed properly, to it being retail shopping centres, they had to comply with the retail shop legislation at the time,
mhm,
and it has still has disclosure rules, but it had particular ones at that point in time that were quite strict around giving disclosure and it being in a proper format, properly signed,
mhm,
and consequences if it wasn't. So going through all the leases in the shopping centre, checking that they were compliant with this legislation, and then sort of grading them in terms of compliant, non-compliant, and then non-compliant, helping the client assess, is it a material risk that they need to address, or is it something maybe they could waive off and still go ahead without fixing.
mhm,
And then those ones that were non-compliant and material, sort of working with the client and then negotiating with the seller around how we're going to address these issues. So
mhm,
is it something that could be fixed by the seller beforehand, or is it something that maybe needed to be rectified after completion, and how that was going to be managed? So I think in those contexts, we had a sum of money kept in retention while they were being fixed post completion,
mhm,
which is an outcome people wanted, so the sale didn't slow down.
mhm,
But from the buyer side, they weren't carrying that risk if these issues couldn't be fixed. They had
mhm,
some hedge against it. So
mhm,
um, put some money in trust for I think a year while these issues were resolved, and then a mechanism to have that money released
mhm.
depending on what happened with some of the issues.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, working through those, making sure DD was being thorough around all those risks so that the buyer was understanding of them and then could
Mhm,
make a decision forward about how to hedge against it and deal with the risk.
yeah. Um, What would you recommend for a seller or a buyer when they are thinking of buying something? When is the best time for them to come to you and get a proper advice, a legal
As
advice?
soon as
As
possible.
soon as
And I mean,
possible.
I would say that for any consultants that they're going to be working with, but
Mm,
the sooner the better. It just leaves more time
mm,
to do a thorough job on it. So um, to talk to the client, identify issues, and then deal with those issues effectively.
mm,
If you've got more time to do that, you can do it more effectively, less pressure,
mm,
less rush, more time to negotiate, that sort of things. But I appreciate some deals have to move quickly, so don't
mm,
always get as much time as you would like.
mm,
Ideally, at least before the contract's signed. So
mm,
certainly have dealt with plenty of deals or investments transactions where someone comes to us after the contract's signed. So the first thing I see is a signed contract.
mm,
And then if there is an issue, it's a lot harder to deal with. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes the issue is all we can do is identify the issue, but
mm,
there's not much the buyer can do
mm,
at that
mm,
point. If it's a buyer, other times we might be able to look at making some changes, but they're doing it once a contract's signed, unless they've got some leverage
mm,
against the seller. There's no guarantee the seller will be happy to accommodate whatever the issue is.
mm,
So they're doing it without leverage in the negotiations, which means you're probably going to get a less effective outcome.
mm, mm,
So
mm,
yeah, if we can get it before the contract's signed
mm.
and identify those issues, we got more scope to come up with a better solution to fix it.
Right.
And that's on the buyer side. For the seller, potentially even more so, because if there's an issue in the property or whatever they're selling, that gets identified by the buyer after a contract sign and they've got some sort of DD,
Mm,
the seller's on the back foot, I think, then in terms of addressing that issue,
mm,
negotiating with the buyer, maybe not scaring the buyer off if they get cold feet because of the issue,
mm.
or if they're negotiating on price, trying to reduce how much of a reduction there is.
Yeah.
If the seller can identify that as earlier and deal with it before speaking with a buyer,
Mm.
they can get rid of those problems and have a smoother transaction. It normally
So
means a better sale price.
yeah. So for example, if a seller is looking to sell their property, and if, say for example, it's a shopping center, so before they sell their property, they come to you and you've identified all of those leases not being done properly and having issues in the leases, and some of them are wanting to leave and not like, so then there will be a few vacancies there as well, which may affect again in the sale price. So what would you recommend them first to do is just to clean up all of the leasing side, have those properties rented if they are wanting to leave, and then sell it? Is that what would you?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend, because some of that's strategy and beyond, say, just legal side of things. But yeah,
Mm,
we would be looking at that and helping to identify if there is a risk like that, and
mm,
then they can plan out whether it's speaking to other consultants to say, look, if I go to market with this and there's 3 tenancies that either vacant, about to leave, or could expire in a year, is that going to impact on price, or should
yeah.
I wait and maybe go and renegotiate with those tenants, see if I can put them on
Before,
a
yeah.
longer lease rather than wait for them to exercise, see if I can get on the front foot, negotiate a longer lease,
Mm,
and then go to market with that. So, yeah, whether we fix the problem or just help them identify it. But again, if that was mid transaction, that's a lot harder to do.
mm,
The buyer might say, I'm not going to wait for you to renegotiate these. Either I'm going to pull out or want the price reduction.
mm.
If you know beforehand, you can get that sorted, and then come with maybe new leases negotiated, and a better price that you can offer or get from buyers.
And then that strengthens your position as a vendor
Yeah,
as well.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So higher price, less chance of issues, turbulence through the process, which means hopefully it's more streamlined.
yeah,
Yeah, potentially even save money from not having to deal with issues mid transaction. So
yeah. And you
a
get a
little bit,
quality buyer
you
who's
do.
like ready to go.
You
Yeah,
do. So some time and money spent up front can actually save you on the long run by
for
getting a
sure.
better outcome.
Why do you think people are reluctant to sort of spend that
Do
money
that?
prior?
Yes. Look, everyone's got a budget.
Mm,
So it's managing the budget in part.
mm,
People, yeah, I guess don't like spending money, and then if there is an issue, the deal falls over, or if there was no issue, they've spent money maybe they didn't have to.
mm,
So I do understand that, and you're always in any investment, you've typically got some budget, and you're weighing up what problems you need to solve based on your budget. So you can't always solve every issue or
mm,
investigate every issue. So
mm,
you got to weigh up where to spend your money, but at some point, trying to save too much by maybe not paying for the right advice
mm,
can end up costing you a lot more. And I mean, as a buyer, the worst. And going back to what I've seen people do
mm,
well,
mm.
is learning when to walk away. So trying to save money and buying the wrong investment is going to cost you a lot more than
For
maybe
sure.
losing a couple of grand and identifying an issue and not going ahead with that.
Yeah,
And that can set you back years as well. If you're
for sure.
trying to continually make investments to get the wrong one, that can ruin your investment plan for years. So
Yeah.
you're sometimes better
So
to pass up
after on
opportunities.
that, after, so say for example, it's under contract now, and both parties, you see a signed copy of the contract, and you immediately like, no, it shouldn't have been like under contract,
Mm.
and there are too many red flags for it to go through during or through the mid of the transaction. Do you go to the buyer or the seller, whoever you are representing, and then asking them to just walk away because you've got that time? And was it hard to sort of for them to listen to it because they were too emotionally invested
Yep.
and they still wanted that to go through it?
Um, Yeah, that would certainly happen. I'm trying to think of a specific example, and it depends on I mean, at that point in time, whether they can or can't walk away depends on the terms of the contract. So,
Yeah.
you know, as a buyer, if it's got a due diligence clause in there,
Yeah.
then they might have the ability to get out.
Mm.
Um, but if there's no DD clause, then they might be stuck.
Yeah.
There's not so a lot of buyer beware. So there's not. Always an issue that means you can get out of the contract. So,
Mm. Mm.
um,
Mm.
yeah, sometimes it's just making them aware of the issue, but
Yeah.
giving them the bad news that that's an issue and they might have to proceed with this contract. I mean, we
Mm.
can certainly look. Lawyers will love to try and find holes and issues that they can create, but
Yeah.
a DD often gives them a guaranteed out. If not, they're looking for something else that trying to exit might carry risk in itself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, if we came up with that issue, yeah, it would be educating the client about what the problem is and what their rights are under the contract, and then helping them decide on the best path forward, whether they can exit or if there's some other way they might want to approach it with the seller or buyer to get a better outcome.
Okay. With the disclosure statement, now that like we as agents have to submit the disclosure statement before the buyers buy the property, what have you seen from the lawyer's side? Has that sort of reduced your work on the DD, or has it added any value, or it does not really matter? You still have to do your own DD, and especially when there is a body corp versus there's no body corp
Yeah.
involved.
I haven't seen it make any big impact yet.
No.
Possibly a lot of those things were pretty standard that we would do if we're acting
Mhm.
for a buyer anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, I haven't come across anything that's made a huge difference from
No.
that side. I mean, other than saving buyers on some time and cost. So
Yeah.
rather than having to do those searches themselves,
Yeah.
having them given to them by the seller,
Yeah.
who incurs that expense.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, same issue. If they take that to a solicitor as a buyer to check before they sign the contract, then
Mhm.
great. But if they just sign the contract and then go to to their solicitor, they might not always have an outcome or recourse if they
Yeah,
haven't checked it properly.
exactly. And what are you seeing from your side? Do the buyers even look at the DD? Because it's not the DD, sorry, the disclosure statement, because it's quite massive. Like some of them are like 127 pages. Do they even read it, or do they just leave it on the lawyer because it's like that's what you are here
Yes.
for? It's
Yes.
like
Yeah, well, I suspect a lot of them don't read it.
yeah.
Yeah, 120 pages. I think that a lot of them, if they are speaking to someone or a lawyer, would be relying on them to have a look and point out the key details. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm not always there to know whether they have read them. They often will say yes, we have, but I suspect they have maybe flicked through it and not read the
Yeah.
whole thing. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I don't know if they're always actually going through it
Read it.
properly. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot of information, and that's a big problem with uh, a lot of these things with disclosure and some of the rules they bring in. That they can be great, but often they create a lot of paperwork that
It does. It
nobody's
slows
actually
down the
going
whole
through.
transaction for no
So
reason.
too much paperwork just it can become its own issue because people
Mhm.
stop. They don't read anything rather than
Mm.
maybe just the very basics that are
Yeah.
important. So I
Yeah.
certainly see that for some of the rules that come through that the intention is reasonable or good, but
Mhm.
the paperwork it creates almost pushes people away from being thorough and checking things because there's just so much. So
Yeah,
yeah, can have unintended consequences that way.
for sure. Um, Give us an example of, for example, if it's a very proactive agent and a proactive lawyer on a deal versus not so proactive agent. The agent just wants to get the deal done, and there's still a proactive lawyer involved. How does that sort of changes a transaction, or does it help, or it does not help, or what are the pros and cons?
Um, yeah, I think everyone being proactive always helps with deals, and
Mhm.
that speed is always a big factor. So if things drag out, inevitably either people just lose confidence or lose motivation, or other issues get picked up, or
Mhm.
they overthink things. So speed is important. So
Yeah.
if everyone's proactive,
Mm.
that makes a big difference, particularly because you often have a few consultants involved. And so if one is slow or not proactive, that filters down by the time it then gets maybe to the lawyer.
Mm.
They're busy with something else. So trying to keep things moving quickly makes a
Yeah.
big difference. In terms of being proactive around issues, yeah, there are multiple people involved. So it's a
Mm.
negotiation. So if you're being proactive to try and look at solutions,
Mm.
that's also going to help a lot.
Yeah.
Problems often do arise.
Mm.
It's how you approach those. So typically, being proactive gets a
Helps.
better outcome.
Yeah.
It's more likely to reach an outcome that everyone's happy with,
Yeah.
and that gets resolved quicker than just waiting or not doing anything about it. So,
Mhm.
um,
In your opinion, what does a proactive lawyer looks like? Like if they are doing their job really well and they are very good at their job, what do they need to do before it goes under contract?
Um, well, maybe two things. I think just generally being proactive. Not everyone's going to be perfect at it. I understand there's reasons you may not proactively try to solve a solution, but sometimes dealing on matters, I see people involved, and whether it's a lawyer or someone else as a consultant saying that's not my problem, that's the other side's problem.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't always understand that,
Mm.
because if it's a deal, a negotiation that takes both sides sort of reach an agreement, it is kind of your
Yeah,
client's problem.
exactly.
Because once the other side finds out or comes back to you with an answer, you're going to have to deal with it, and that's
Mm.
taken time. So
Yeah, it's the
getting on,
teamwork.
it is. So getting on the front foot and not just saying, well, that's up to the other side to deal with. I'll wait for them to come to me, and trying to look for solutions earlier
Mm.
can help a lot, because it just speeds up the whole process. So
Yeah.
never quite understood. There are times that you just can't help it, and it is the other side. They've got to come up with a solution. But there's other examples where people will just wait for the other side rather than being proactive around it. And I
Yeah.
don't always see that's helping the deal. If your job is to get the outcome being the sale, then
Yeah.
anything that speeds that along in the
Yeah.
direction your client wants
Mm.
is beneficial
Yeah.
than waiting. Before the contract's signed, yeah, I mean, it's probably leaning into what your expertise is to advise the client. So um, helping them on that purchase sale, it's a two-way street. So
Mm.
you need to work with the client, understand what their issues are and what they want you to focus on. But
Mm.
you can also be proactive about flagging those issues with them and saying,
Yeah.
have you thought about this? Do you want me to look into this? I recommend looking into this, rather than just waiting for them to maybe come
To
to
come to
you or
you.
raise the issues that are important to them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a two-way street. They need to tell you what they want or
Mm.
what's important, but it's
Mm.
also about you being proactive to say, well, here's, in my experience, some other issues that you need to think about.
Yeah.
Do you want us to look into these?
Yeah. So what are the quick red flags that you see sort of in any what are the give us top 3 red flags that you see in a transaction you're like, "Oh my God, no, that
Y-
shouldn't be there."
I Structure would be one. I mean, that's very dependent, I guess. For us, we do a lot of structuring work, but
Mm.
I think getting the right structure in place for when you're making an investment is important,
Mm.
and both for that particular investment, but also long term. So
Mm.
what benefits does it provide? Tax, which is a bit up in the air, but what benefits might it provide from asset protection purpose as well? How does it fit in with your overall structure if you've got multiple investments?
Mhm.
How does it work with everything else? So getting that set up early makes a big difference.
Mm.
Can be very hard to change later on, or very costly.
Yeah.
Um, the Yeah, thinking about DD.
Mhm.
So what is it that needs to be looked into
Mhm.
in the investment? And being thorough about that makes a
Yeah.
big difference. So
Do you give them a guidance on the yield or the return? If, say, for example, an agent has sold them um, potential ROI on this or potential yield on this is 7%, then if when they come to you and then you see all the paperwork, but then you're like, what do you mean by potential? Like there is no number there. Is that a red flag? Or you see it as a whole that no, it can you're right in terms of the agent is right in terms of having a 6% or 7% as potential, because I can see in like a couple of months you will get that quality tenant. So then yes, it is a 6 or 7% return. But until you don't have that, do you flag that as a risk? Or would you say, or would you guide your client not to go into that transaction? Or it depends on the transaction?
uh, we wouldn't guide them on the actual yield so
Mm.
much. That's probably outside. Well, that is outside of our scope or remit as lawyers. We're not
Mm.
there to give financial advice.
Yeah.
And then there's a fine line between some commercial advice as well.
Mhm.
But what we would help with or look at is maybe some of the facts that support that, and give them some guidance around that. So whether it is based on tenancies in there at the moment or certain leases.
Mhm.
So for us, drilling down into those leases to see, do they support that underlying number?
What's been sold as?
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
being sold at? Or is there some hidden cost that they're not factoring in? or, and it's a simple example, but if the lease is going to run out in a year,
Mm.
great, that's the yield now. But what happens when the lease expires?
Mm.
If there's no option, there's no, you're going to be negotiating with a tenant,
Mm.
or yeah, if there's no one in there and they're talking about getting a future tenant, like for us as lawyers, a big part of our job is looking at the what ifs for if the best case scenario doesn't happen. So
Mm.
we might not be advising them on what the actual yield is, but we
Mm.
would certainly potentially challenge them on, well, okay, what happens if you don't get a tenant? How are you going to support or fund this or manage it if it takes you 6 months to find a tenant
Yeah.
rather than a couple of months? Is there other options? Is there ways to manage that
Mm.
we might be able to de-risk that a little bit?
Mm.
Or is it going to kill the deal and you have to think about going ahead? So
Mm.
we wouldn't drill or advise specifically on the yield, but maybe things that we are experts on that underpin some of that, we can
Mhm.
give them advice on and help them just clarify and give some certainty and de-risk what might actually happen.
Mhm. Has it happened where a client is like very uncertain, but still has sort of signed the lease, and you don't see that as a red flag in terms of when you see the contract and you see, no, everything looks good. Do you sort of go there and reassure, or it's not something that you do? Like, would you reassure and say, no, it's a safe deal, or it's a good deal, or you should go through it, or don't worry about it, or things like that, or it's not something that you would sort of go on that path?
To an extent. So yeah, again, we we wouldn't give advice on the overall investment because there's a lot of factors that go into determining
Yeah.
whether it's a good deal, and that's not our job or our skill set to be particularly advising on the whole thing.
Yeah.
What we can advise on and say, in our experience, why it might not be a good deal or what is good about it will be some of those legal issues. So
Mhm.
we can lean into certain parts of it to say that, look, that um, based on the legal side of what we can investigate,
Mm.
that all supports uh, the investment being a good deal or being something that stacks up for the numbers that you're looking at,
Mm.
or give some clarity if there is something they're a little bit worried about. So if it is a lease and how secure it is, we can certainly
Mm.
maybe help them make a
Reassure
decision
them.
on that to say, well, that's not a risk.
Yeah.
We're not going to guarantee necessarily the numbers because that's not our job.
Mm.
And the tenant may still be go bust if things change, but the
Yeah.
lease itself is secure. And we might be able to investigate if have they got a strong history of paying to at
Mm.
least give them some reassurance around those issues.
Mm.
And again, that's just about there's always going to be risk, but what can
Mm.
you de-risk? So
Or a
you take those.
calculated risk that
Yeah,
you
so
can.
that's a much lower probability now. I'm more comfortable going ahead with that. Those sort of things.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you. Well, if someone was buying their first commercial property, what are the first three things that they must get it right?
Um, Yeah, the as we were talking about structure,
Mhm.
getting advice, get the right structure. I think makes a big difference in terms of so what entity you're going to use to buy it and how that fits into your overall structure if you've got one or what
Yeah.
the plan is. Um, I know I've also said this before, but getting good advice from people, not
Mm.
just legal advice, but
Financial advice.
financial
Yeah.
advice. So from an account, but then also brokers are going to be important, that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then I would say, again, I also spoke about it, but being prepared to walk away
Mm. Why?
because, yeah, there's lots of deals out there. There's always going to be another one.
Mm.
I think some people get worried that their budget, that they don't want to keep spending money. They're
Mm.
worried they'll miss out on a deal.
Mm.
And so they jump into something that in hindsight wasn't ideal. And
Mm.
like I said, it cost them a lot. I think there's more opportunities out there. So there'll always be another one.
Mm.
But if you get into the wrong one, you might not have a chance to get the next opportunity for some years' time.
Mm.
And I'm always very conscious. I started my career just sort of post GFC, so I saw a lot of people that, for various reasons, like were in the wrong investment.
Mm.
Economics changed, the market changed. Might have had multiple properties and they lost them all. They lost their homes, that sort of thing. And it takes a long time to rebuild from nothing.
100%.
So
100%.
if yeah, you've got to, again, take some risk, but being able to walk away can be the difference between going back again and finding another deal or being out of the investment game for years to come. So
Mm, mm.
that's always stuck in my mind after that period after GFC, helping lots of clients that were going through that stressful process and
Yeah,
just how stressful it was, but how much of a setback it is after years of building something
for sure. For
to
sure.
lose it all.
Yeah.
So I think
And yes, you can build it again, but it's going to take a long time again to sort of start all over it again.
it is.
Yeah.
So
And then you're in a different market as well versus where you were. So, yeah.
yep, and it's not impossible, but
Mm.
and some people have that skill set to be able to rebuild quickly
Yeah.
or to get investment capital, but not everyone. So
Yeah.
when you do have, say, more limited opportunities, picking the wrong one can be a big setback. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
do think having that in
But,
your mindset that you can walk away.
but I think everything is risky and
Mhm.
not taking a risk is more riskier than taking a risk. But you're right, like taking a calculated risk, not just a risk.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the hard part. It's not saying don't take risks.
Mm.
It's saying stay in the game long enough so you can be there for the right opportunity.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, certainly wouldn't be telling people don't invest at all.
Yeah.
It's just know what the right opportunity is and be
Mhm.
prepared to walk away until the right one comes up.
Right.
Because
So not being attached to it. Not being.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% agree. You're going to have to take a risk if you want to do it,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. That's why not everyone's doing it. That's where the advantages come from. It's
Exactly.
just yeah, knowing what one suits you, so you can and waiting for that one rather
Mm.
than forcing yourself to jump in the
For
next
sure.
one.
Not just because my friend is doing it. I will
Yeah,
do
I
it.
fear of missing out, or I wanted to have one in 6 months' time, so that's my timeline. No,
Yeah.
you're better off finding the right one for you.
Mm.
So yeah,
It's a good one. Um, I think I've already spoken about that. What was you have worked on countless transactions. What separates a smooth deal from a disaster? Have you spoke about that?
no, we haven't. And again, at risk of sounding repetitive, I think just doing the work up front.
Yeah.
So that time and money invested up front, but particularly time if we're not even talking about money, but time up front, doing the hard work up front makes the transaction a whole lot smoother as you
Mm.
go through. And that might be going to talk to certain consultants and getting their input to smooth out or identify issues or address issues. But um, yeah, if you do that work up front and
It's gonna
narrow
be smooth.
down, get alignment with if there's a buyer or seller on the other side,
Mm.
get most of those key details agreed on, identify some issues and fix them up.
Yeah.
Then when it gets to the contract being signed and following through, it's a much smoother transaction.
For sure.
And often in the big picture saves you time and money, I
Yeah.
think. So
Yeah.
more often than not, it's money well spent and time well spent.
Mm-hmm. Um, I think we have spoken about that. The most complex transaction. Um, spoken about all of that. Look at us. What do successful property investors consistently do differently?
Um, Yeah, it is that point I made, which maybe was why it was in my head. I think
Yeah.
the ones I've seen are prepared to walk away. Like they
Compared to
know
what?
they know, and I guess both the other side of that coin is they know exactly what is the right investment for them.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are successful continuously, they know, and that feeds into what I was talking about with the client who was a residential developer. They knew what they were really good at, and
Yeah.
they kept looking for those right investments that fit within that.
Yeah.
And once they found that, and they just kept repeating it, that's where a mix of experience and compounding just kept growing and growing from that. So I think knowing your sweet
Consistency.
spot in that what you're investing in. So there's a
Yeah.
whole range of investments and way things can be structured or what you're planning to do with it, but knowing what really suits you and then
Yeah.
being consistent with that
Yeah.
is going to pay dividends in the long term more than any other little tricks you can try and do. Um,
You can do it as a hobby though, on the side.
you can, you can.
And then not worry about the return or anything. Like just do it. And the risk that you put is like, I might lose that, but I'm okay losing that money.
Yep.
So if you're okay doing that and just do it as a side thing, and if if it blooms into something, then it's good. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you've tried it and you
Yeah.
don't sort of think of it or regret not trying.
Yeah. And then it's about knowing what you're prepared to risk. So it probably goes back into what I was saying of trying to, if it is a hobby or something you're not doing full time, putting too much into it and
Yeah.
picking the wrong one, and then you
True.
can't go back and invest again,
Yeah.
and you don't get the benefit of having a few goes and finding one that works.
Yeah.
And also those still, if it is a hobby, you'll probably find ones that really suit you and within whatever time frame and capacity you've got to do it on top of your job or your day to day, and just narrowing down on those rather than jumping from different investments. Or I spoke to someone at
On a pub.
barbecue, and they said do this, but you don't really have experience in it. More often than not, you're going to end up in trouble with that sort of stuff. So it can be tempting. You can hear about the returns, but yeah, I would be cautious about that. If you've got something you're already doing that was working well,
Yeah.
stick to that.
Then stick to that.
Yep.
Okay. From a legal perspective, what are the biggest implications people should be paying attention to, and where do you see the greatest risk of people getting caught out with the budget implications? If it's for example, if it goes through, what do you think is going to impact and how it's going to impact in commercial property?
Yeah, I think one will be understanding what structure they're going to use. So for people moving forward that are looking at buying an investment, it might change what previously was the best structure to use. Depending on what comes through, it might be more companies or self-managed super funds might come back into vogue a bit more. So having that right structure, I guess for people that are in investments at the moment, there's going to be possibly some issues around the impacts for that investment and whether it's going to still stack up or cause problems. And is it going to be worth restructuring? Can they restructure without the costs being too high? And I guess potentially there might be a change in what investments are valuable. I know we were talking about maybe commercial becoming more popular now because of the metrics being changed. So I was always in terms of helping clients and work that we've done, one thing has always stood out to me is investments that are too dependent on government regulations are always a bit more risky. And whether that's, property and say negative gearing or businesses that are based around particular industries, the downside is as soon as that changes, the investment mechanics change and government rules do change, unfortunately. So, trying to look at investments that aren't as dependent on just certain rules or regulations making them viable is important, I think.
What are give us a couple of examples on the best businesses to sort of invest in, regardless of these government implications or the changes in the government legislations?
Businesses?
Yeah.
Well, ones that are not too dependent on business regulations. So, I mean, an example of what could be more risky, ones around the, I'm having a mental blank on what it's called, but the NDIS scheme.
Yes.
So that's been changing continuously, and there's talk about reducing funding to that. So that's a business that built up over government rules and are now going to experience some issues around changes. I guess versus things that are more consistent and less dependent on government regulations. Not to say they can't be good investments, but there might ones that exist regardless. So a lot of professional services can be the same example of that. People are getting accounting advice, for example, regardless. Like the rules on accounting might change, but the need for accounting advice is always there.
Yeah.
If anything, it creates work when it changes. So those things are what you might call them even anti-fragile. So they benefit from change rather than being impacted by it. So if you can find businesses like that, which there's lots of, it's probably just the ones always be a little bit more wary and understand the risks and just, it doesn't mean you wouldn't make them. They're not worthwhile, but be conscious of ones that are heavily tied to a regulation because that can change. And if that does, you could be out of business very quickly and there's not much you can do about it.
Okay. If you were not a lawyer, what would you be?
Um, is this the me as a 12-year-old kid answer? Because the dream was to play AFL, but
Yeah.
apart from maybe a bit of height, I didn't have too much else talent going for me. If I wasn't, like the passion, I always thought architecture would be interesting.
Mhm.
I like the built environment. I like seeing what people can do with the built environment.
Mm.
And so I guess architecture was a way to be involved in that and maybe have some involvement in the design side.
Yeah.
I've met a few architects and they've told me it's a very long journey to get there. And then the the outcome in terms of what you are producing for clients, the back end is not quite as exciting. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I wouldn't enjoy that. It's one of those ones, a bit like maybe people in MasterChef. It seems good as a hobby, but if it was your career, it's not quite as
Would you try it though?
being an
Like
architect.
at some point?
Um, Probably not, only because that is it. From what it's a long time in uni, so I
Yeah.
think I would try it if you could go, yeah, retire at some point and then quickly get into it. But I think the
Mm.
journey to start again for that career would be
Long,
difficult.
really long.
Maybe for me, it might be more on the investment side.
Mm.
So I've also always had an interest in investment, and that might be where it's easy to get into, and I could leverage off some of my existing skills
Yeah.
and even the other things like networks. So if I was, that might be one where I could combine an interest, but also not have to start from
From
scratch back at uni
scratch.
completely,
Yeah.
and take all that time.
Yeah. No, awesome. Well, tell our viewers or listeners why they should choose you compared to any other law firm.
Yeah. Look, I mean, a big part of getting advice from a lawyer, I think, is fit.
Mhm.
So finding the right lawyer and law firm for you is important. There's a trust element to it.
Yeah.
I guess for us, where we fit is within that boutique space where we're bringing um, our experience and commercial expertise across a few areas. So mine, but then also colleagues who have more tax experience
Mhm.
um, to clients to help them without the big firm overhead, the big firm siloing that you can get where they've got similar expertise, but they're in discrete teams that have got a lot of other jobs that they're working on.
Mm. Mhm.
So clients that are looking for that sort of service
Mm.
where we're specialists, so we're not doing other areas as well that are completely different. So we don't do litigation work; it's all front end,
Mm.
commercial, transactional work. Uh, yeah, clients that want that, I think we're the right fit for them because that's where we can bring our strength, being the expertise, but the more hand-on access to to the lawyers that in the firm.
Yeah.
Without some of those overheads, etc. So
Yes. And just being really proactive and transparent and open and honest on your advice.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. It's something we always try and do.
Mhm.
Bring to the work that we're doing, being
Yeah.
quite easy to get in contact with and deal with.
Mm.
For us at the moment, it's all senior lawyers. So whether it's me or someone else that 10 plus years experience
Mm.
are doing the work,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily just getting pushed out to juniors.
Yeah.
So they're doing the work and they know the job,
Yeah.
and they're talking to our clients on the phone regularly or
Yeah.
in meetings about what's happening
Mhm.
and trying to be proactive. And then generally, I think pretty easy to get on with. So
Mm.
we've got different experience as well, not just as lawyers, but life experience. So most of us are pretty easy to get in contact and talk to.
Yeah. So is that a conscious choice? Because being easygoing is quite contradictory to a lawyer because a lawyer is always perceived as someone who's very intimidating.
Yep.
So is that a conscious choice of being easygoing or it's just who you are?
Yeah, probably for me, it's who I am, but it is part of our firm, whether that's just because that's who we are, and but also partly a conscious choice in the sense we've found maybe that's what has worked for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients are clients we've worked with for 10 years,
Mm.
so or longer, so a
Mm.
long period of time. We don't want to be someone they just go and see when there's a problem. We want to
Mm.
be able to talk to us,
Before.
beforehand,
Yeah.
bounce ideas off, and that means being approachable and easy to deal with.
Yeah.
I guess that's potentially, hopefully, going to work out well for us with where things are going. And skill and expertise is always relevant, but maybe how that's being delivered now will change with
Yeah.
technology. So it's the skill sets to be able to relate that back to people, and what they're doing, what their experiences are, that are going to be the more important part. So
Yeah. With the AI space, have you seen any changes already, or are you adapting or with the new AI tools, and how's that impacted your business, or has it added any value to you, or
um, seeing changes, whether it's adding value or not, it's hard to say because
Mhm.
it's still pretty new, and it's constantly evolving, adapting. So I think people are all figuring out how it fits in while the technology is constantly updating as well, and changing how it works. So
Yeah.
I kind of think of it as just a tool at the moment,
Mhm.
similar to email or computers when they were coming out, that
Yeah.
um, can be great, can speed up things, can help you produce more, more quickly, more efficiently, potentially more effectively.
Mhm.
But you've still got to be there doing the work using the tool. It's not yet doing it while I'm here on the podcast.
Yeah.
If I'm not in front of the computer, the work's not happening. And so
True.
that's why I kind of think of it as a tool, and that takes time then for people to figure out how it fits within their workflow.
For sure.
They might have to redesign some of the workflow. They've got to test out the tool to see
Yeah.
how it helps them best, what works, what doesn't. So sometimes it actually slows you down a little bit until you
Sure.
figure that out.
Yeah.
So the ones that are probably benefiting from it and will in the short term are investing that time to find a way to build it into their workflows
Mm.
specifically for their business.
Mm.
So that's short term. Long term, who knows?
Mm.
On one end, it could completely change things if it
Mm.
really starts to be able to do that work while I'm here
Mm.
chatting to you, and I go back and it's finished a contract review.
Mm.
Um, to it will, the other end, it will just always be that tool, and it will need me there operating it.
I think our jobs would still be needing very much a human touch, because we still are humans, and
Mm,
being in property, you still need to sort of talk to another human being rather than a robot, because I think there is a mistrust between the robot and a human,
mm,
especially at this point in time. And again, the biggest difference is emotions. We have emotions, they don't.
mhm.
Um, and the other part is being creative. I think we are creative, where the other side is a machine. So I don't think it's replaceable, but it I think when we see it as in terms of the AI is going to take over your job, it's taking over the jobs that are repetitive and don't need a human touch, are the ones that are actually replaceable, compared to the people that are always like talking to people who need to sort of see. And because as you've seen it, like being in property, it's such a massive decision for people, or even buying a business is such a big decision, and you go through an emotional roller coaster. You need another human being to understand you and understand your emotions, to be empathetic towards you and still advise you in the right direction. So I guess there is a lot more complexity in terms of the emotion side of it. So I don't think AI will replace those professions from my
Yeah,
perspective.
that would be my hope as well. That
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of demand for legal services,
Mhm.
and legal advice as an example, but good advice in a whole range of areas. But law is one of the more expensive areas to get advice. So there's lots of people that just aren't getting good advice that
Mm.
really need it.
Yeah.
And part of that is just the structure of how law firms operate. The time it takes, the level of skill it takes to give advice makes it cost prohibitive to deliver.
Mm. Mm.
So the price is high. If you can take that out, then there's a lot more opportunity for lawyers to help more clients,
Mm.
to be more proactive, to spend more time talking to
Yep.
clients rather than back in front of the computer
Yeah.
reviewing the contract, which
Mhm.
might take 5 hours, and then there's a 1 hour of delivery to the client. But
Mm.
the delivery part was the one that really added the value and
Mm.
translated it for the client.
Yeah.
But we get bogged down with the 5 hours of review.
Emotions,
So if you're
yes.
taking that out, then I can spend 6 hours with 6 different clients.
Mm.
So clients are able to get more advice. I'm able to add more value.
For sure.
So that would be great if it
Mm.
gets to that point.
Yeah.
It's just what happens beyond that. So
Mm.
um, there's certainly lots of human involvement in what we do, but a lot of it's knowledge and computers that could be replaced.
Mm.
For you, maybe because you're out there with something physical,
Yeah.
that might be harder for AI. So I don't
Yeah.
know, that's the unknown side. But
Yeah.
yeah, from what there's so many options or possibilities for that. I guess I'm for what seems most likely at the moment is that outcome where it's just freeing up time to be
Mm.
able to help more
For sure.
clients
Yeah.
on things that they need more value on. So
Yeah.
that's probably what I'm positive about.
Yeah.
If it does that, great, because I think that is a great outcome. It's actually means we can help more people. All advisors can help more people at a lower cost. Hopefully, spend less time on the back end and more time on that front end with
Yeah.
people.
For sure. I think that's already happening with so many businesses that I've seen have integrated AI into their workflow.
Mm,
And I have already seen the changes, and it can do wonders if you use it right rather than you being fearful and letting it use you.
mm,
So it depends on how you sort of perceive and also adapt to it. As you said, like people were so scared before, even like when the computers were coming up, everyone was like, oh, technology, or, reluctant to the change. Again, we as human beings, like, for example, budget, we are so reluctant to change. But if we accept it and adapt it, we can always use it to our benefit, and not letting it use us. It could be anything, it could be any tool, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
the ones that probably get, end up the worst are the ones that are reluctant and don't.
Mm.
If it's going to happen, find a way to embrace it and
Yeah,
get the best out of it.
for
If you
sure.
resist, eventually, if it does come through, it's going to replace those ones that haven't adapted.
Mm.
And it's the people that have adapted that will
Mm.
hopefully, well, not hopefully, but we'll do the best out of it. Hopefully,
sure.
everyone is adapting.
Yeah.
So that those ones or those roles or jobs that disappear,
Mm.
it's just about finding, creating new opportunities for other roles and jobs, etc.
Mm. Awesome. I think we are done.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me on.
If this episode gave you clarity, now is the time to execute it. Take one action, apply it, and start building your version of the financial freedom. Share it with someone if you thought this episode has added value. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Commercial Wealth Podcast.